Hello, my name is Schkump, and this is not the usual video I would make, but I am first and foremost an artist, and what I make on this channel is art, whether you like it or not. But before we continue, if you want to continue watching without my yapping, there's a link in the description to a version of this video without commentary. Also, flashing image warning, I like to spin the canvas a lot and it looks a bit crazy at points, so apologies in advance. But anyways, I made this channel about a year ago, making video essays on whatever random video game or movie I was interested in for that month. But my focus for every video was never on the essay itself. It was on me improving my skills in animating, editing, drawing, or whatever other skill I needed to make that video. But I'm an artist and I want to show my art with the world. And that brings us to this video. I thought that if my art was what I wanted to focus on, why not make that the focus of the video? You know, one day I'm going to look back on this drawing in this video and say, wow, that looks like shit. And that's why we're here. That's what we're all about. We're about growth and evolution. We are here to get better. So here we are. I've been addicted to Marvel Rivals for the past 2 or so months. So I'm drawing fan art of Galacta from that game. I chose her specifically because I suck at drawing anything inorganic, so like technology and such. So I thought her big helmet and armor type outfit would make for some good practice. I also just love watching these art time lapses. I just love watching the process of somebody making something and what really goes into creating the things that they create. But you might be wondering, what the hell is he doing? And that is a good question. You see, my original idea was I was going to do this entirely traditionally. I was going to use a plain piece of printer paper and a broken mechanical pencil to show that you didn't need fancy materials to make art. But after doing the entire sketch, I was like, fuck it, I'll do it digitally. And the reason that this video is so long for being such a simple drawing is mostly because of that. On top of the fact that I've been trying to break my chains away from Adobe. I've been using their program for about 2 years now, and it's been sucking me dry every single month. So here I have Clip Studio Paint. This is my first time using the app, so there was a lot of setup that I did not do and was practically just flying by the seat of my pants. I just downloaded the app, imported all the brushes that I never use from Photoshop, and just went ham. I decided that I would forego just my standard practice of using just round brush, because I thought I might as well try one of the other brushes. So I decided to grab the manga brush set I had never used up until that point. I thought manga is close enough to comics, so maybe it would look nice. I did like the brush that I ended up using for the line art, and that's mostly because like the lines ended up coming out a bit rough and sort of sketchy. I kind of like that. I'm probably never going to use that brush again, but you know, baby steps, making progress, getting out of your comfort zone, you know, stuff. I do think that the piece comes out really nice in the end. I did take some creative liberties with Galacta's design, since I took design cues from not only her appearance in Marvel Rivals, but also whatever comic panel or fan art came up in a Google search. I am kind of disappointed in myself because I usually like my style to be a bit more angular, and I didn't really capture that here. But you know, I'm getting out of my comfort zone. It's kind of nice to just do something you're not really used to. I also don't really think I got the pose completely correct and the proportions, but I don't give a shit about proportions and all that garbage, just as long as it looks nice in the end. I will always subscribe to the practice that you don't need to be a great artist to make good art, just make something that looks good to you. Who cares about anyone else? But like I said, this piece took an embarrassingly long amount of time. So much so that the video does not even cover all the time I spent, despite it still being half an hour long with how much, even with all the speed up that I did. And that's because I lost an hour's worth of footage somewhere in there. So when the background suddenly stops being this gross yellow color and a shit ton of line art is suddenly just filled in, you know why. I was using OBS to capture my display while I drew, since that's what I was familiar with. It was only after I finished that I realized Clip Studio has a built-in time-lapse feature. Oops. Regardless, I kind of like this way better because it better shows the process of me creating all of this, spending way too much time filling in the line art that should have already been done if I just kept it traditional, but shush. I'm learning as I go, which is what I've been doing on this channel since the beginning. But you'll see when I start, I'm redoing lines like 20 times before I'm satisfied with it, but as I go, I ease up on that and I start to just do the lines and do it in one go, mostly, for the most part, and it becomes a lot smoother. I am aware of the practice of don't focus on small details that only you will notice, but it's really hard for me to break that part of me sometimes because I just fall into this really bad mindset from time to time because I like adding those small details. It's kind of like small Easter eggs for myself and anybody else that takes the time to notice. But it also makes creating these pieces so much longer, so I can never recommend it. Despite that, I think the line art didn't even take the longest. It was more so the coloring process. And that's mostly because I just could not figure it out on Clip Studio. I had just recently figured out a good process for it in Photoshop, but now I switched programs, so I'm basically back to square one. It was a lot of futzing with settings and layers and mixing colors, you know, so it was not even particularly interesting to watch. There's a kind of funny section, at least to me, where I just couldn't figure out the layers, so I colored the entire left half of the earth down there completely by hand out of pure spite and frustration, making it take way longer than it should have. I figured it out. You see me figure it out. But I just couldn't figure it out for just the longest time. I actually think in terms of coloring, Clip Studio is way better than Photoshop. You can mix colors on a separate palette, magic wand layers while ignoring others. You can use a single reference layer or every layer. It's really nice for selecting. It's just really nice all around once I figured it out. Regardless, if you see any weird techniques used here, there's a very simple explanation for it. That explanation is that I didn't know and I was doing my best and I'm figuring it out. I left a lot of my fumbling in so that I can actively see me learn, and maybe that can be like, I don't know, inspirational for you. I don't know. I'm just a simple, mediocre, aspiring artist making his way through the world. But that also close to doubled the length of the time lapse, so you know, it's a horse apiece, I guess. Also, because of the whole breaking away from Adobe thing, I have to learn a whole new editing software that's not Premiere, so please ignore any bad cuts and such. I'm figuring it out. I think I've had to say that a lot during this time lapse, but seriously, I'm trying my best. But I also know that the only parts that I cut out were setting stuff that didn't matter to the drawing. If I left any of that stuff in, it was either because I thought it was important enough to leave in, or I thought it was funny. You know, either way. Also, if you're wondering about the border, I'm just hiding the layers and brushes because it cropped weirdly and covered half of the shit anyway, so might as well just cover up the rest with this goofy border that I drew in 10 minutes. But this video has a secondary motive behind it as well, because it's connected to a story, and I don't know how else to transition into it, so I'm just gonna jump right into it. So I'm just gonna start from the beginning, so strap in. Schkump's about to get philosophical and introspective on your asses. So, as I said, I made this channel about a year ago, making video essays. I kept myself to a pretty strict monthly schedule, since that's what kept me motivated to actually work on the videos. and my channel has been doing great, all things considered. I've grown to a couple hundred subscribers and I have multiple thousands of views to my name. Of course, knowing the YouTube climate, that sounds super small, but I really do appreciate all of it, and it really does mean the world to me. Imagine multiple thousands of people watching you talk about a random topic you're interested in. Like, that's amazing. I love it, and I hope they stick around, but that's not the point. The point is that this schedule I have been keeping up with has worked out really well, and I've been keeping up with the monthly schedule, or at least I did until about 2 months ago. So, since this goes by month, I'm just gonna say it starts in November. I was thinking that for the month of November, I would make a video on a trio of games for the Xbox 360. Pretty standard stuff for my channel. I've covered games before. It's just that I was upping it to 3 games that were fairly small, so it would take about the same time to capture footage for. No big deal. I've finished playing through all the games and getting footage for them in the first couple weeks of the month. Not bad. The problems arose when I actually got to making the video. You see, I had convinced myself that this was the video I needed to make, and so I wasn't allowing myself to work on anything else until it was done. This was a terrible idea, because as it turns out, I didn't really have the motivation or the drive to make this video. So it was pushed to the back of my mind, and I got nothing done on anything, much less the video, for the entire month of November. By the time December rolled around, I had only finished the script, and it was a first draft, which is in most cases my final draft, but that's besides the point. So shit, now I'm a month behind on a video, and I have been doing nothing of note for the past month. So what's a Schkump to do in this scenario? Well, double down, of course! That's right, I was so wrapped up in my own process that I had completely forgotten that the main point of this channel was for me to have fun with my content. The numbers never really mattered to me. If they did, I would have made a video on a topic a bit more relevant than movies and games from 2 decades ago. But I had tossed that aside because I had thoroughly convinced myself that this was the video I needed to make, and I couldn't do anything until it was done. I had forced myself between the rock and the hard place. I had trapped myself in a prison of my own making, and guess what? By the time December rolled into January, I still had basically nothing on that video done. I wasn't ready to scrap it. I had already spent the time to play the games and write the script, and the sunk cost fallacy had wormed its way into my brain. I spent multiple more weeks forcing myself to work on this video that I knew nobody would watch and was only making for my own enjoyment, only I wasn't getting any joy out of it. It took until about a week ago for me to finally come to my senses and can the stupid video. My heart just wasn't in it, and you could tell with every lazy edit I made and the half-hearted voiceover I was doing. This was not the video I wanted to make, and so I finally scrapped it and resolved myself to this one. One where I could actually show off my creativity and my art publicly. And I'm a lot happier with this one than I ever would have been with the other one. I can tell you that much. So, what's the point of this story? Well, I can tell you what I learned from this. First off, it's okay to walk away from a project you're not happy with. It's not worth throwing out a half-hearted attempt at something simply for the sake of throwing something out there. If there's nothing to be gained, then why stick with it? Second, it's okay to settle for a lesser project. That's to say, not every project you work on needs to be this grandiose display of brilliance. Sometimes the best projects are those with the simplest executions. And if you just try to outdo yourself every time and be bigger and better with every project, you'll eventually find yourself in a corner where you simply just cannot expend yourself anymore, and the commitment is just too overwhelming to bear. The third thing, fuck the numbers. Look, I feel like we on the internet have gotten so used to big numbers that it starts to kind of dwarf our pride in what we put out there. Like, I have seen so many people on Twitter and such complaining about a piece of art that they poured so much love and effort into and so many hours and just didn't get the attention that they think it deserved. But that shouldn't matter. Make something that you can be proud of, not something that you know will be popular. Maybe sometimes the two will intersect, but it's okay if it doesn't. Art is about expression and what you make of it. So you should just be confident in what you do. That's why I'm here. I want to show everyone that I can create and make something that means something to me, while also learning a thing or two along the way. If this video doesn't do well, big whoop, I'll move on to the next one, or the next one. It always comes back to that mentality. You don't have to be a great artist to make great art. Make the things that you're proud of, and be confident in your abilities and your talents. Don't compare yourself to everyone else. Only you can do what you do. Not just for art, but literally anything. But how does this connect back to the story? That's because I became complicit in this cycle that I knew worked, and I knew would net me at least a few hundred, if not thousands of views per video. I'd become blinded by that fact, and I forgot that I was really just making these videos for me and for my own enjoyment. I was simply making them because I liked to see that number be big. And I knew this formula worked, so why not go for it? I'd gotten wrapped up in the viewership rather than the videos themselves. The last piece of advice though, progress is not always linear. I know that piece of advice is a bit cliche, but it's true. Look at me. I worked on a video for the last 2 months that I was forced to scrap only to create this one. And even in this one, I changed directions, lost footage, and still came through to put this together. Hell, while editing this video right before I was about to record this voiceover, I ended up having to reset my computer because it wouldn't turn on, making me have to start the whole thing from the beginning because I forgot to back up my files. It was a nightmare. I was not happy. But none of that matters because at the end of the day, I'm happy with the way this turned out. I just kept rolling with the punches. Not everything's gonna go your way every time, and you'll almost never get those perfect conditions where everything's just gonna fall into place exactly how you expected it every time. So no matter what comes your way, just keep pushing. Keep trucking along, keep her moving. Even if that means spending 7 hours on a drawing that could realistically have been done in 2. It's a learning process. I'm learning. But yeah, those are my pieces of advice, but what do I know? I'm just learning like everyone else. In terms of online art and video making, I'm just a newbie, but that's why I'm here, and these are the pieces of advice I subscribe to, and I'm sticking to it. If you want to follow me on this ongoing artistic journey, then subscribe. I'll be happy to have you on board. I mean, only if you want to, or you don't have to. In the future, I want to continue making videos like this. Not exactly like this, but still making videos in a way that allows me to show off my art and my artistic process a bit more than it would have been if I was just sticking with the video essays. I'll probably still make some of those video essays like I did before, but I doubt they'll be the main focus. And even if I do them, it might not happen. I don't know. Anyway, that's all I got. Feel free to check out any of my other content on my channel that may or may not grab your attention. But anyways, thank you, and goodbye. Oh, and also after the time-lapse ended, I went back and changed the background and some other tiny details off camera because I forgot to record because I wasn't happy with them. Anyway, enjoyed the rest of the time-lapse. Anyway, bye.